I'm gonna pull the whole thing down. I'm gonna bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gonna be biblical.
Hey everyone, welcome to Patriots Across the Pond and Friends, episode 31. Stu and I are so happy to welcome Mike Bara today. How are you, Mike?
I am doing good. I'm just busily getting everything set up. Hang on. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, while you're doing that, I want to give everyone a little bit of an introduction for anyone who is not familiar with you and your work.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike Bara is a New York Times bestselling author, lecturer, and TV personality whose books have sold over 100,000 copies worldwide. He began his writing career after spending more than 25 years as an engineering designer consultant for major aerospace companies, where he was a card-carrying member of the military-industrial complex.
That's me.
And a self-described born-again conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. Mike has made numerous public appearances lecturing on the subjects of space science, NASA, physics, UFOs, and the link between science and spirit, and the history of the U.S. economy. He has been a featured guest on radio programs like Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. He's a regular contributor to the television program Ancient Aliens, over 50 appearances, and so much more. He hosts his own podcasts, including Real News Live with Mike and Jen and Toxically Masculine Tuesday, as well as being a regular guest on Whiskey and Wisdom with Mark Z and Zester. Wow. How are you?
And Mel Carmine. And we got to update that because it's like 100 appearances on Ancient Aliens. More than that, probably. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Got to update that one for you.
That's an impressive little listen, that.
What's that?
That's an impressive little listen, that.
Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's nice to know you made a little bit of an impact, right?
Yeah, good. So how are you? I haven't spoken to you since we were on the forecast about 4 months ago. All good?
Yeah. Things are pretty good. I've had some health issues. They turned on the 5G plus towers here, and like literally the next day, I lost about 50% of the hearing in my left ear, and my dog went blind. And so I'm fighting that and trying to find different cures and things like that. But other than that, I've been doing pretty well. So yeah, it's a problem, So
wow.
A lot of nerve, it causes nerve damage, this stuff, I think. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Well, there's certainly a lot going on in the world, Mike. So where do you want to start us off?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Elisa was just bringing up the weather, and I just put up, just not to do a little self-promoting here, but I'm going to do a little self-promoting. I just put up a video about on my YouTube, Mike Bara333, and also my Rumble, Real News Live with Mike and Jen, that was titled, The Golden Dome is Not What You Think, and Why Trump Really Wants Greenland. And so I think that's a relevant issue to the European viewers and the American viewers. and indeed the entire world when we get into it, because, Elisa, Tuesday, Trump addressed Davos, right? And he had this, he basically read him the riot act and told him, we're done with you guys and this is what we're going to do. And you're going to go along with it or you're going to get left behind, and good luck negotiating with Vlad, right? That was basically what he said to them. And it, of course, publicly it wasn't well received. And then they all kind of bent the knee afterwards and gave him access to Greenland. But what was also going on that same day that most people don't appreciate is there was this massive solar flare, this huge solar storm that hit the Earth's magnetic field and excited all kinds of particles in the radiation belts, the Van Allen belts, and in the upper atmosphere. And Elisa, that's where this storm came from, because out of nowhere, this storm starts forming. And, the thing is that the science, the typical science, they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about these kinds of things. They don't want to talk about how when we had a solar eclipse, solar eclipse in 2018, 3 hurricanes immediately formed right after that alignment, after that eclipse in the Caribbean at 19.5 degrees, which Richard Hoagland talks about, and I've talked about in my book, The Choice and stuff. And these are all predictable things within this larger physics model that's kind of a combination of the electric universe that Velikovsky talks about. But these things all have an effect. And that storm, this storm, this record-breaking storm, was generated by that solar flare. And I think that that's one of the reasons why that speech was given on that day. And
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah.
And I suspect what Trump was doing was telling them in private, look, this is what's going to happen. The sun, there's going to be more of these, and it's going to wreck our entire civilization unless we do something about it. So what I think really the biggest thing is it's not the minerals that they want. It's not the rare earths. It's not the control of the shipping lanes in the Arctic as much as it is they want to build more of these HARP devices all the way from Iceland. And Trump said Iceland several times. And it
sounded like it was out of nowhere. Like, what? Yeah. And then, yeah.
Yeah, I do think it was a misstatement, but I think in the back of his head, he wants to extend this to Iceland. You're going to create, if you go to Iceland and Greenland and we annex large parts of Canada all the way to Alaska, what you have is a loop where you can place a bunch of these HARP devices at military bases. And what they do is they basically harden the ionosphere. They pump heat and energy into the ionosphere, which hardens it, makes it ostensibly to bounce low frequency radio signals off to communicate with submarines. Now, we're going to have subs in the Arctic. There's no question about that. It's all about controlling shipping lanes and making sure China and Russia don't cut us off from the trade that we need. But the other effect of that is that if there is a massive solar flare, like on the order of the Carrington event in 1859, you could have a burn through. You could actually have superheated plasma burn through the poles and literally set the sky on fire. And there are cave paintings that show this from 12 or 13,000 years ago that may have then melted the ice caps and caused the Great Flood and all these things. So there's this way deeper aspect of this. And I think, and I don't know if we'll ever get proof of this because they may keep it classified, that we're going to build all of these HARP devices all along this loop, not just to protect us from Russian or Chinese ICBMs, which is a possibility if bad governments get control of those countries and their nuclear arsenals. But it's mostly, I think, to protect the entire Earth from this Z-pinch solar flare scenario, which I suspect they think is coming sometime in relatively soon. Now, the fact that Trump is so casual about being a nice guy about getting access to this indicates to me that we're 10 years away at least before we have to worry about anything like this. But it's clearly coming, and I think that's what we're preparing for. And that's what I put the video out about. So please go watch it and tell me, you guys, what you think, where I might have gone wrong with this theory.
All right, two things. Can you repeat again so we can put it in the chat where they find your what you just did, the video?
Well, Mike Bara 333 on YouTube is the channel.
Okay.
And it'll be up there.
Okay. And the second question, just because I understand what you're saying, but I just wanted to ask you to clarify a little more. So if they put these HARP devices along the loop, right, what does that do? Like you know what I mean? Like how does that protect us from this possible?
If flares are detectable, so they can be very fast, but you're going to have a day or two's notice at the least. What they then do is they amp up these HAARP devices, and HAARP itself, I think, was it was just the test article. It was like, we're going to test whether this technology works to strengthen the ionosphere. I think that was always the secret purpose of HAARP. And yeah, it can interfere. It can probably have some effect on earthquakes. Yeah, it can probably create weather. Those are sidelights. But I think the main thing was always, can we harden these weak points in the magnetic field, which are at the North and South Pole? And if we can, then that can prevent this superheated plasma and energetic particles from breaking through the Earth's protective magnetic field, which I believe has pretty much wiped out human civilization in the past. I think we've been knocked way back to the Stone Age. And if we had a Carrington-size event now, it would knock most of the planet back into the Stone Age. I mean, if you look at, we're doing a fairly good job of protecting our electrical grid and stuff, but if you look at places like Thailand, you watch these tourist videos and stuff, and everything, all the transformers, all the connectors, all the transfer stations, they're all just sitting outside on telephone poles. If they got zapped by an event like that, there would be no electricity in countries like Thailand for like 10 or 20 years. So it becomes total chaos, and it becomes like Mad Max or something, or the Road Warrior type of environment in those countries. And I think that clearly Trump is smart enough, or the people around him are smart enough to say, we cannot allow this to happen in the US. And so we're working on it, and it's funny because we struggle with jobs here. Like, I mean, the economy is doing much better than it was a year ago, but there's still a long way to go here. And it's like, in Vegas, it's great. I live in Las Vegas. And in most of the city, all the modern parts of the city, there's no telephone poles. There's no electrical lines. They're all buried. They were smart enough to do that. But in half the city, they're still up on telephone poles. So to me, a project that would put millions of people to work and pay them really well is, let's go out there and completely bury our electrical grid so it can't get zapped by one of these EMPs or solar flares. It seems like that should just be a no-brainer project. So
interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, we knew there was something deeper about Greenland. I mean, anybody who's, partially
and I think that's what it is, because again, the United States is in the northern hemisphere. It's more vulnerable to a flare through there. One could leak through the southern hemisphere as well. But the thing about that is, we did build a HAARP-like device in Puerto Rico, which is about as far south as you can go in the U.S. I think we can get some stuff in the Florida Keys, but it's hard to hide those. So I suspect the South American countries are going to be doing the same thing. And the question is, will they secretly build these things, or will they let us know, like they did with HAARP, that it exists? That's a good question.
And see. if they do build it, what do you think they will use as the narrative? Like, are they going to come out and say we're protecting
with ships at sea and submarines, because they can bounce low frequency radio signals? Once you harden the ionosphere, you can bounce those signals off of it and communicate with subs under the water, which is the main, military advantage, the overt military advantage. But that's not necessarily what it's really all about, because HAARP can serve multiple other functions, like starting earthquakes, starting storms.
Right.
There's lots of cases of connections when HAARP was on fire, basically being used at high levels of energy. And I mean, I think it's 35 terawatts or something this thing can put out if it needs to, which is a lot of energy.
Wow.
And there are times when it's been active, super active, and you get an earthquake somewhere, or you get a storm forming, like immediately upon them switching to switch on, boom. So I think it was an experiment, one that they allowed to become somewhat public, maybe to educate people about the technology a little bit. And now I think we're going to see it put into practical use. And that was built in the early to mid 90s. I mean, how far has the technology advanced since then is a good question. So we'll see.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, just talk about the Carrington event in 1859, just very briefly, for people who don't know what that was.
Well, the Carrington event in 1859 was a massive solar flare, and it put out so much energy. It's bigger than anyone that's been recorded since. It was an X-class solar flare, and it knocked out power lines. There were reports of people communicating by very early primitive telegraph and even telephone lines. And they were getting hit by all this electricity coming through the power line, to the point that they actually disconnected their telegraphs, and they continued.
Uh-oh.
That's probably at my end. Yeah, that's probably at my end. That lost of connection there.
So just go back to that they were hit by electricity.
They were hit by this electricity, and they unplugged, to the point that they had to unplug their batteries because it was going to fry their batteries. So much current was going to come through it. So they disconnected their batteries, and their telegraphs continued to work for 45 minutes afterwards. That's how intense this thing was. And you know, it was burned out. Light bulbs exploded, that kind of thing. You know, there were very early primitive electrical grids there. And it's been said, I think quite accurately, that if it hit the U.S. or if it hit the world with the same kind of storm today, it would knock out 70 or 80% of the power grids all over the world. So, you know, we would be back to the Stone Age. And the United States is just as vulnerable as anybody else because we haven't hardened our electrical grid. I know my friend George Norrie over at Coast to Coast AM, the famous radio show that Art Bell started, he's been on this for 10 or 15 years. And it's pretty simple. All you have to do is sheath the power lines and the telephone lines and in rubber and plastic and bury them in the ground. And I think that's probably the best use of government money. I mean, I'd rather spend trillions on that than some of the other crap we're spending it on. And so really, it would only take a couple of Somali daycare budgets.
A couple of Learning centers.
Learning centers,
Learning centers, yeah. And we'd have this all done. So, you know, that's kind of becoming my cause célèbre at the moment, because I really do think that this last storm is a hint or a warning that this kind of thing could happen and really set us back.
Well, everyone's got a big feeling. Some major big happenings are sort of coming down the pipe. And obviously, you've been talking in your latest podcast a bit about this whole aliens agenda and the push for it and trying to replace God out of people's lives. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Well, you know, ever since this UFO flap thing started happening, Stu, in 2017, it was relatively quickly after Trump took office. All of a sudden, we found that news media, traditional news media, which had always mocked UFOs and the UFO movement, suddenly started taking it seriously. They started reporting on it. They brought out this Lou Elizondo character, and I do think he's a character. I don't think he's a guy. I think he's a character. And putting him on 60 Minutes and giving him his own show, and he gets this lucrative book deal. And then all of the other whistleblowers who say, well, I heard we had crashed alien spacecraft. And yeah, the TTSA videos, you know, Tom DeLonghi or whatever his name is, the singer from some bad 90s band. Well, the talker, I don't know that he sings. He talks mostly. But yeah, whatever happened to singing? Remember when guys could sing in rock bands?
And they also had to say MF every other word.
Robert Plant, Robin Zander, Paul Stanley, some of the great rock singers we ever had, and now everybody just talks. But having said that, all these videos start coming out, and I was just like, what's the agenda here? Because this is a political agenda, right? It's clearly an agenda because the lid was taken off, and we're going to let this UFO stuff out. But as I dug into it, it was all pretty easily debunkable. I mean, those TTSA videos from the Pentagon, those are all, I'm convinced, conventional military aircraft that we were testing or something. And they leaked them out as if they were flying saucers. And there's a famous picture shown on 60 Minutes. An F-18 fighter pilot takes a picture of a flying saucer. Well, that turned out to be a Mylar balloon, a Batman balloon from some kid's birthday party that got up to 10,000 feet or something, you know, and he took a picture of it. So it was all bullshit. Excuse me. It was all BS. And so I'm beginning to think, okay, so they're putting this thing together. So these things are easily debunkable by anybody with a brain. And I like to think of myself as having a brain. And Jeremy Corbell starts putting out the USS Omaha video, which I think is clearly just a drone or an aircraft flying over the horizon. And they're like, oh, it splashed into the water. No, it just flew over the horizon, and I can improve that. And then the Calvine UFO photo comes out, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's the tip of this mountain right here in Scotland that they took a picture of. And there's a Harrier in front of it. And they're like, oh, guess what? It looks like this Harrier is chasing a UFO. Let's go sell it to a newspaper and have a nice week in Barbados. So anyway, all this stuff is easily debunkable. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And then they had these committee hearings where they have Oliver Stone on talking about the Kennedy assassination. And I'm like, I'd give a piece of anatomy on the left side of my body if Oliver Stone could get one fact right about the Kennedy assassination. Just one. And so they got all the wrong people testifying. They have these guys come out of nowhere, this Grush and these other people, and they all have clay feet. They all have problems. Turns out Elizondo didn't run the ATIP program. He kind of heard about it. Maybe he wasn't, but Pentagon says he wasn't involved. So they're showing pictures of, oh, look at this flying saucer, and it's the chandelier in the hotel room behind him. And, I can go on and on and on. So I'm like, but what's the political agenda here? Why is James Clapper, who I consider a traitor to America, in front of this committee helping these people? Why is he feeding them this information? And what's going on? And I eventually started, well, there's got to be a political agenda behind it. So what is it? And then it dawned on me as I read through some more documents and I started listening to the actual rhetoric of these guys. I mean, clowns like Christopher Mellon and guys like that, when they start yapping, I just tune out. You don't know what you're talking about. And if you do, you're BSing people, in my opinion, right? So, but then I started actually listening to what they said. And it's like, oh, well, we don't have this technology. This is so far beyond us. They're like gods to us, practically. Somebody actually said that. I think they said they're like gods compared to us with the technology they have. And I'm like, oh, gods, that's really interesting. So then I begin to think, what is the deep state globalist agenda? They want to separate us, Elisa, human beings, you and me, from our direct relationship to Christ or to God, right? They don't want that, because that is the essence of individuality and rebellion, and that is exactly what the globalist wants to crush. Yeah. Back in the biblical days, you had the the king who wanted to build the Tower of Babel, right, to be as of God, which I think was a rocket launch tower. That was what they thought they were building, so they could have rockets like the Anunnaki that came and went. But that's another story. And they said, well, how are we going to do this? I think it was Nebuchadnezzar, I want to say. How are we going to do this? And he said, we shall make bricks.
Was it Nimrod?
Nimrod. Might have been Nimrod. It was an N name. Yeah. We shall make bricks is what the king said. And what he meant by that is God makes each of us a stone, right? How is a stone formed? It's formed by the wind and the lava ejected from a volcano randomly. And it's formed by the water that rushes over. And every stone is unique, just as every single human being is unique. So what he was saying is, I want to make human beings into bricks, not into stones. What are bricks? They are man-made. They are not divinely created. They are all the same. They are all built the same, and they are useful only as tools for what the elite, or the people who think that they're the elite, want to use them for. So they're trying to make us into, that's what globalism is all about, is to make every human being not an individual that's connected to God and created by God with divine inspiration, but a brick who has no connection to God. Well, how do you do that? You get up there and you BS people about aliens. What they're trying to do, I believe firmly, Stu, is to replace God in our lives with
science.
That's an interesting place to cut me off. What I believe the globalist agenda and the intelligence community agenda is to replace God in our lives with the alien. The alien is what they want to become our God, and they will teach us bullshit. Can I say BS? They are trying to. They're going to feed us bullshit about how they're so superior to us. And, oh, we created your religions. We created Christ. That was our myth that we shoved into your consciousness in order to control you. And now we're freeing you from that by having you believe in the alien and all this other crap that they manipulated our history this way and that way and all this other stuff. That's the agenda. That's what they're going to try to shove down our throat. And look at all this magical technology we have. Well, I wrote a book called Secret Agenda back in 2016. And I went through, and it's pretty clear to me that we had flying saucer technology by about 1960 on our own. We figured it out on our own, how to basically defeat gravity and create flying saucers. So if that's what we had in 1960, what do we have now? And how many UFO sightings are really just our aircraft, our experimental aircraft? And that brings up, Elisa, all kinds of stuff about the space wars going on, the secret space programs. But the point is that they're not more advanced than us. They're not that much more advanced than us. It's like when you learn to drive a car. Do you remember when you first learned to drive, right? The first year, you're shaky and you don't have much experience. But after a year, you've got all the experience you need to drive that car just as well as anybody who's been doing it for 40 or 50 or 100 or 1,000 years. So once we get our hands on that technology, we're after a little bit, we're just as good at using it as they are. So they instead, I think, made an alliance in order to control the human race. And the whole purpose is to replace our relationship on our special connection to God with the alien. They're going to try to put the alien in between us by pretending that, they're so much smarter than us and they must know better than we do. So we should do what they tell us to do, which is going to be all this transgenderism crap and not having babies and, putting a wedge between men and women, which is what they've been working very hard to do for 50 years. And unfortunately, it's been rather successful. So I mean, that's what I see the agenda is. This is a long, long answer to a short question. That's how I see the agenda. And the thing that people need, I believe, to keep in mind is, why are they here? They are not here because they're stronger than us. They are not here because they're better than us. They're here because they're weaker than us. They're here because they desperately need something from us. There's no resources on this planet you can't get anywhere else. You can get water, you can get gold, you can get oil, you can get those things. They're plentiful in the universe. They're all over the place. They're all over the solar system. The only reason why they would be here is for us. And that means they need something from us. And I believe I know what it is, but they need something from us.
Well,
so
what
that
do you think it is?
Weaker than us.
Our DNA, our soul, our divinity of how we're connected to God, like what?
All of those things, because I believe that I think that the purpose of consciousness is to end up closer to God at the end of your three-dimensional life than when you started it, right? That's the advancement of each species. And their path, whatever they chose, and if you look at the Greys, I think they chose intellect. We chose free will, and and their way has failed. So they think that choice, that spiritual choice that we made, is somehow embedded in our physical DNA. So they're trying to create a cross between us and them so that they cannot die out, because they are dying out and they are weak and they need us more than we need them. So we should be coming at them in a negotiation from a position of strength. And we should be developing and working very hard on technologies to keep them from operating here on this planet. And I suspect that's what Trump is trying to do. But that's what I think the bigger purpose of this is. So they need us. We don't need them.
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting, because Lara Logan talks a lot about the child trafficking, and one of the main reasons she says that is because children are the closest to God, and their whole purpose is to defeat God and steer us in what other direction they want.
It's probably two things, Stu. It's probably to cut us off from God, and to instead replace us with themselves somehow.
Yeah. Well, you say it so eloquently. I love it, because why would you come here otherwise? Unless we had something you didn't have.
Yeah, exactly. And, you hear these hearings and I'm Anna Paulina Luna, and I'm Anna Paulina Luna, and I'm, these are interdimensional beings. What a bunch of freaking gobbledygook. Interdimensional beings. Why are we even speculating about that? That has nothing to do with anything. I don't care where they come from. I don't care if they come from the inner Earth. They came from some other planet 35 million years ago and lived. I don't care. I don't care if they're from Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2. The point is, they're not from here. They're not native to this planet, and they're here for a reason to take something from us that they need. And it's like we get distracted with all this crap. Who cares if they're interdimensional beings and not really aliens? That's a second level question that doesn't address the first level question is, what are they doing? Why are they here? And what can we do to stop it? Because this planet and our existence is none of their freaking business. Sorry.
Well said.
I got a
Well
little
said.
passionate about that shit.
Well, I know you are, because, Stu and I could just go on, or as he says, waffle on and on and on for like hours. So I know you have limited time. But Stu, unless you have more on this topic, I know what we had originally. Yeah.
Well, no, it's just if Mike wants to get anything out, he can go there. I've got a few questions, but if it's going to take up the time, I'd rather let Mike say, if he's got anything that he wants to talk about first.
Yeah. No, we kind of did it all. We kind of got off on, we started on the storm track and the harp and Trump and all that. So no, let's go from there.
All right. Well, obviously Trump went to Davos the other day. He read them a eulogy. He's pretty much, told him to stick it. He's created a border peace, which almost completely eradicates the United Nations in one hit. And I know you were talking on the podcast before he went that you were a little bit worried about him going because he might be taken out, and we're all fearful of things like that. I mean, how many Trumps is there? But yeah, this border peace really stuck a stick in their eye for the letterbox, hasn't it? By the looks of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, remember they did try to take him out. They did something to Air Force One, and they had to turn around and come back and get on a different plane. So an attempt was made, which I, was not really surprised by. I know of 4 assassination attempts, the 2 public ones. That's 6. I think we can chalk this up to 7. And I have a friend on the inside who can talk to the Trump security detail and give me hints and tips, but something was going on with that. So they did try to take him out. I was concerned about that, but he basically went there and took the gloves off and told them that we're going to go around you guys and all these institutions. And I think if we continue on the path we're on now, the UN is going to be run out of the United States. Let it go be in Europe somewhere. We're not going to bother with it because it's corrupt. We all know how corrupt it is. We know what they've been doing with the children. UNESCO is a huge child trafficking organization. It's disgusting. So, he's clearly, by creating the Board of Peace, just saying, I'm going to go around you guys. Yeah. And he's going to have Putin on there and Xi and the guys that I think he's involved with in a secret alliance, because the reality is it's the banking cabal versus the people. And we now have guys in place in some important governments that are ready to get rid of these people too, that have been causing all of the problems. I mean, the United States and Russia should not be in opposition. They should be working together. We share more in common culturally than we do with any of the other nations we're aligned with. And that's also partly why I think Russia is deeply involved with Iran. It's not to have an alliance with the mullahs. It's to be in alignment with the Christian government that will take over when the mullahs are finally run out. That's what I think.
I know you're quite vocal about this as well, that all this stuff we're hearing about Iran and Trump needs to get in there and stuff. But do you believe there's already alliances made? We've seen the Afghanistan withdrawal, and how much of that was fake and blow up planes or whatever you could talk about. But, Trump's his capitulation tour, he's made deals with a lot of these countries. There's obviously some sort of deals made with Iran behind the scenes, whether that's just to get the IRGC out or these mullahs and he's working with other people. But there's a lot going on over there.
Yeah, I think that Iran is going to be part of almost like a Christian alliance with Russia, which is an Eastern Orthodox Christian nation, as are many of the people in the Middle East. There's very large Christian communities in all the countries there. And remember, the Bedouins, the Arabs, they never inhabited these places 2,000 years ago. They were all Hebrew and Christian and Caucasian, and that's not their land. So,
you're Persia, right. And I just want to underscore this, because recently, like, I was at a Stay Awake America tour, and there were 2 very outspoken, very brilliant Iranians who are now American and are so patriotic. And they talk about the Persian culture, and they were, in their own words, brainwashed into believing that they were Muslim when their roots were in Christianity. They had a lot to say, which I'm not going to say, well, leave it for when we have it on, but a lot to say about the founder of that religion. And so to your point, you're right. They are, sort of in this awakening, remembering as far as like who they really are. So it would make complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and to add to that, we're seeing a fair few. We know there's an internet shut down in Iran and certain places and things, but we are seeing videos come out about, Iranians saying this Islam religion was put on them, and they didn't want to be part of it.
Well, the mistake they made was allowing Islam to get any kind of foothold in their country at all. I blame the first Shah for doing that, but he probably was manipulated by CIA, who had a plan to replace him at all times. Remember, the deep state cabal, the banking cabal, they want Christianity out of everything because there is a rebellious aspect and an individualistic aspect to Judeo-Christian values that they want to destroy worldwide to basically enslave every single one of us. That's the idea ultimately, right?
Yeah.
So going back in that history, there are 17 million people in Iran, which, by the way, Iran is a word for Aryan. By the way, it means they're Caucasian, not Arabs as we think of them. They've allowed this Arab Muslim infiltration of their country. There's about 1 million Muslims. And I think when this is over, which I hope is soon, and I believe we should be supporting them far more than we are by dropping them guns and rifles and ammo and just parachuting all that stuff in and saying, go kill these guys. I think if they're able to get control of the country, and I'm hoping this is the one. I mean, we've had several uprisings and we have not supported them sufficiently. And it's gone back to being under the control of the IRGC. But at this time we can get them out of there, I think they're going to bulldoze every mosque. I think they're going to declare Islam to be not a religion, but a political ideology that's banned the way Nazism is banned in Europe. And I hope that they can create a safety net, an enclave of a Christian nation there, or Zoroastrian is the minority religion, which goes way back. So I mean, that's what I hope we can get there, is basically a beachhead in Muslim Arabia to spread the concepts of individuality and freedom.
And you got to remember, especially here in this country, the job they've done in brainwashing people to believe Iran is so bad and not understanding what the history of the country. So you've got a little bit of
the mullahs are bad.
Israel, thing, and
the mullahs are bad people. That is an evil regime, and it was put in there by our CIA. We have to take responsibility for that.
Of course.
Jimmy Carter and the CIA conspired to overthrow the Shah, and we've got to go back in and fix our karma. Let's go in there and support these people and help them run these guys out of there and fix our karma. And I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why we're sitting on our hands. Apparently, it's above my pay grade. But Mr. Trump, let's strike their targets. Let's strike their military and their police with our bombs, and then give guns to the people and let things take their course in Persia. So
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more going on there than we actually know about with these military operations. But
yeah, well, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely getting a bit closer to home then. Well, home for you, not me.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got all this stuff going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Waltz and Jacob Frey have really been coming out pushing this insurrection. Obama's been brought into the equation now. He's making this push, but then all of a sudden overnight, Waltz has sort of taken a step back. Apparently, he's making deals with Trump and stuff. And I believe potentially, because you cannot tell people the truth, you got to show them. What we might see is Obama being brought more into the spotlight to actually call for this insurrection and tell people and really put him in the crosshairs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, if he becomes the de facto leader of the insurrection, then therefore he is fair game and he can be arrested. He can be arrested anyway for a million legally justified reasons. But yeah, it'll put him right on the ground. Like, he's the one inciting all this stuff. All the stuff they said about Trump in 2021 is going to be true about Barack Obama in 2026. Well, great. Then we can put you on trial. And
that's a beautiful thing, because I only thought about it this morning, the fact that he's been pushed a little bit more. If they actually see that the man they loved is the one that they were completely looking at the wrong way, and he's standing there. So that'd be really interesting to see how that develops. Certainly.
Yeah. Minnesota is ground zero right now for the culture war in the U.S. The Democrats are trying to start a civil war to try to, have an excuse to steal the midterm elections and impeach Trump. I don't think they're going to let that happen. I hope not, but I would like to see a lot more action on the Trump side of things in terms of
definitely. Well, it's the public. Yeah, the public can see it a lot more what's happening than they did in 2020 with all the BLM rights and stuff.
Right. And I mean, if what's been happening in Minnesota doesn't justify invoking the Insurrection Act and sending the military in to quell things in Minnesota, I don't know what does. Why are we still waiting on that?
And we don't.
I hear because Trump doesn't want to look like a dictator. We elected you to take care of this problem. And was Abraham Lincoln a dictator because he invoked the Insurrection Act? Was Harry Truman a dictator because he invoked it? Kennedy invoked it. I mean, come on, guys. In a way, the other presidents have done this. So are they dictators?
Well, I have another idea.
So I think that's why Trump's mentioned Article 2 so much and these dictatorial powers, because he knows what's coming and he's going to do it. Whether it's already been invoked privately and they're going to do it publicly now is another story.
Right.
But I think something's coming. Sorry to cut you off there,
Elisa. Oh,
Elisa.
no, it's okay. But also now look at the other states, right? Because this is in Minnesota. So now we know it's coming out in Ohio. We know New York. I don't know if it was local news, but they just, had more of these. They weren't learning centers, but they had to do with, nursing care centers and everything where they help elderly or sick people. So it could be that timing wise, they're waiting to have the blow up show up in a couple of states to really show the intensity. Now, I'm not going to make a comment whether he should or shouldn't right now invoke the Insurrection Act. That's like not my place. I don't know enough, but I think we're going to see it blow up a little bit more where people can, because right now it's easy for the country to go, oh, look what's happening in Minnesota.
Right.
Well, it's Ohio, it's New York, it's God knows how many other states. No, this is a national problem. This is not a one state city problem. So we'll have to wait.
Agreed. But Minnesota is kind of the head of the snake because that's where so much of the Somali fraud, went through there. That exposes all the stuff that Doge was doing and makes that legitimate. And I think the lesson to teach the people now is that the Democrats only exist because they've been stealing your tax money by laundering it through places like Minnesota, billions and billions, if not trillions of dollars over the last 20 or 30 years, so they can then steal elections throughout the country. And, I think that Minnesota is the jugular vein. I think it's the heart of this whole thing. And I mean, why would Kamala Harris, why would she pick lighten the loafers? I think men should wear tampons. Tim Walz is her candidate. There's only one reason, because her campaign was broke in July. She was broke. She had no money. And then she picks this guy, and all of a sudden they're flush with money. And they make this whole phony story up about how they had all these small contributions from everyday Americans. Bullshit. It was all of the fraudulent American taxpayer dollars that Tim Walz and this whole conspiracy had stolen that made that campaign flushing. And that's why she picked him, because he had access to all the money. And that's why he needs to go down in a painful way, and why Minnesota needs to be destroyed first, I think, is because once you do that and expose everything that's there, then the other states that have been part of this are going to kind of like, well, we don't want that to happen to us. So that's what I hope is going on, and I'm waiting for it to play out.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so lot going on with finances, gold, silver, flying. I heard you talking a little bit about the RV the other day, cryptocurrencies. Do you want to talk about that for a little while?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big money metals guy. I'm not Andy Schechtman of Miles Franklin. I'm not him, but I understand a little bit about this. And clearly, it looks as though the world is going to move to gold-backed currencies. And it's funny, I see these fake guys online, like this Kim.com guy out of New Zealand. He's like, oh, this is the fall of the American empire. The dollar's going to collapse. And it's like, do you seriously not think that they have a plan in place for when that happens? I mean, he's just an agent for somebody. I don't know who, but him and David Icke. David Icke has gone so far off the reservation, I just laugh at him now. Old man yelling at cloud. I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about anymore. And it's become ridiculous. So where I think we're clearly headed is to the collapse, the organized collapse, of the fiat currency system, which we all know can't continue because fiat currency eventually falls to its intrinsic value, which is zero, less than the paper it's printed on. And that's happening all over the world. So clearly there's a plan in place that's going to involve asset-backed currencies. And everybody thinks gold and silver. Is there enough gold and silver in the world to supply the money needs of the planet? I'm not sure there is. Therefore, I think we go to an asset-backed system where paper currencies are going to be backed by other things like commodities, like oil, for instance. Iraq is going to back their dinar with oil, and Venezuelan oil, and gold, and silver, and even things like the labor of their people. I think the Vietnamese dong is going to be backed by just the labor and the productive output of the Vietnamese people, which is substantial. I mean, I'm sitting here wearing a couple of nice New Balance sneakers right now, I'm sure built in Vietnam, So I see a much more equitable world coming once we get through all this pain. And the message is don't be scared. Don't be scared if the stock market collapses, the American stock market collapses for a few days, because it's going to come back up. Just hold on to everything. You know the expression hodl, right? Hold on for dear life, HODL. Do that with your cryptos, because we don't know what's going to happen with cryptos. I'm a firm believer in XRP and XLM. And just the way silver was held down for hundreds of years in terms of its true value, now you see things like XRP and XLM being held down.
Yeah.
And so that eventually that dam is going to break too. And I think we're on the brink of a major financial reset that I'm actually excited about, no matter how painful it might be. So, have paper currency, have cash, have gold, have silver, have stock holdings, and have foreign currency, have it all. And you'll be fine, because one of them, as the value of one goes down, the value of another is going to go up. So you're going to be okay.
We've talked about this many times, the fact that whatever scare events come in a financial crash, we've just, tried to talk to normies about a lot of things to wake them up. And if the child trafficking won't do it, and they're looking away at this, and they still think COVID was real, things like that, potentially the only way is you're going to actually wake these people up with a jolt is to crash the system, whether that's for a few days, and people might think they've lost their money for a short period of time. But I talked to somebody and I was talking about the banking collapse, and in return for that you get debt forgiveness, and she was all upset about it. And I'm like, she's like, well, what happens, what happens to the $5,000 I've got in the bank? Well, you lose it. But in return, you get the house you're living in and the car you're driving. You're getting $500,000 in value for the $5,000 you might lose in your bank account. And that's the way I want people to think about it, because if this happens, and there was an incident in Iran a couple weeks ago where supposedly they introduced a virus into the central banking system, the rebels did, that wiped out all the bank records. So if all the bank records get wiped out, guess what? Everything you have is yours. You don't owe anybody anything for it anymore, because there's no record of the transaction anymore. And
very interesting point.
And for 90% of us, the people who are not part of the banking cabals, that's going to be a huge boon, because we owe more than we have. So we're going to come out ahead of it. And the people up there who have all these assets that can no longer be tracked, they're going to be poor. So it's a complete flip-flop of the system. And I think that's what's coming. So again, don't be afraid of a banking collapse. Don't be afraid if all your bank records go away, because the vast majority of us are going to be way better off.
Yeah.
Beautiful point.
Very. And I would be remiss. We didn't realize it was your birthday yesterday.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm 57.
Oh, happy birthday.
Merry born day.
Well, you look great. You look great for 39. So
yeah, I do. I'm sure I do. I'm sure I look great for 39.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Happy birthday to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Elisa, you got anything else?
No, but I want to say, because we talked about so many great current things that need to be talked about, I would love the benefit of having you come on again, because your the research and the historical perspective that you have on the financial system is just, we're not taught this in school. We don't understand the patterns that have taken place throughout since 1776, 79. And, some people know it, some people don't, but I just think your presentation on that is spectacular. So
Thanks.
we'll have to get.
Yeah, which I did in New York and at the Quantum Summit. It looks like I'm coming back to the next Quantum Summit here in March, so back at Cape Canaveral. So we'll be repeating that information. And we could do that in an hour. Be happy to come back on sometime in the near future, and we could just go through this is what this was supposed to be about, but there's so many current events to talk about. We didn't have time, but the secret history of the United States, how did we get to this place, is really important. So yeah.
It is. So, all right. So you're going to be at the Quantum Summit in.
It looks like I'm going to be. Yeah. So
good. Yeah. I couldn't make it. I had conflicts. Mel had asked me to come down if I wanted to be MC, and I would have loved to, but I won't be there. So good luck with that. I'm sure it's going to be another great event down there.
I had a blast at the last one, so hopefully, if it's half that good, it'll be really good. So.
Yeah, and he's going to have it at the center, right?
I don't quite know, but I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Everybody could get a little charged as everything's going on, right?
All I know is when Mel asks me, I say yes.
Yeah, I know.
You got to do it, right?
Cool. Yes. All right. Well, we've got about 5-10 minutes left, maybe. What else is going on in the world? Current events that's really striking your interest at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think we covered most everything. I do think you should go back and research, and you should research these concepts of NESARA and GESARA, right? The Global Economic Security and Reformation Act and the National Economic Security, because everything in those documents that they talk about is being put on the table. So I believe firmly that they're real. If you look at what they say, they talk about in America, no income tax. Well, what's Donald Trump talking about? Let's get rid of the income tax. What's his excuse? Tariffs are bringing in so much money, and Doge has found so much money. And wait, Stu, wait till they actually tell you what they found in Fort Knox, which I think is going to be hundreds of thousands of metric tons of gold, valued at $42 an ounce. And what is gold now? Almost $5,000 an ounce. Yes. Well, we're gonna now say it's actually valued at the market value. We're going to tie it to the market value, and guess what? The U.S. doesn't have a national debt anymore. So I believe all these things are coming. And when Trump says these things, he means it. Now, the big hurdle we have to clear is the tariff ruling from the Supreme Court, which tariffs are an instrument of foreign policy from my perspective. Therefore, they fall directly under the president's foreign policy initiatives. He doesn't need to consult with anybody. He doesn't need approval from anybody. He doesn't need Congress to pass them. And you got to look at all the corrupt politicians on both sides of the aisle in America that are trying to stop the tariffs. They're doing that because they're being paid to do that in fiat currency money. But that is the key thing. If the Supreme Court rules that, the tariffs are illegal, it'll be a bullshit ruling that it will have no basis in law, because clearly this is an instrument of foreign policy, which means the president can do it at his whim. But if they rule that, it's going to push us into a constitutional crisis or a civil war, because if Trump does not accept that, which he should not, then what's he going to do? He could have the Supreme Court arrested. That's what I'd do. I'd say they're violated their oath, so I'm arresting them all and putting them on ice for 10 years or something. That's what I'd do, and replace them with new people who actually follow the Constitution. But I'm a little more extreme. But it will create a crisis, because it will either further the financial collapse very quickly of the market collapse, or if they rule properly in his favor that he has the power to do this, that will also push other countries to give up the fight and surrender. So this war is between the banking cabals who are being starved of their money to a certain extent. The best analogy I can make is go back and watch some YouTube videos. I think it was Game 6 of the World Chess Championship between Boris Spassky and Bobby Fischer. And basically what Fischer did is he just, like, the description is, it's like he starved Spassky of oxygen. There was nothing he could do, right? That's what Trump is trying to do to these guys. And the only way they can stop the money being taken from the evil ones and put into the hands of what we perceive as the good guys is if they do something dramatic. And I think that the tariff thing is part of it. But here's the thing. They were supposed to rule on this 2 weeks ago. They haven't. So I think what's going on behind the scenes is they're being told, this is what will happen if you do not rule in our favor. If you rule that tariffs cannot be imposed by a president, which on the face of it is ridiculous if you read our Constitution, then this is going to happen and this is going to happen. So in some ways, they're caught between a rock and a hard place, because if they rule that, it could lead to a stock market collapse, which is where the bad guys have all their money. Yeah. So on the one hand, they keep Trump from having the money, or the excuse for having the money, because, you know, the tariff, I mean, we all know the wealth is in the foreign currencies that are held by the U.S. Treasury and the gold and the silver. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place. And that's why this ruling has taken so long, is they're trying to figure out, how can we do this in such a way that it doesn't destroy our own cause? And trust me, a lot of the members of the Supreme Court are corrupted. There's no question about that.
We know that, right?
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
You know, so that's what I look forward to, is in the next week, is that ruling, because that'll show us which direction we're going to go. So it's almost like a kamikaze attack. Yeah, we can rule that Trump can't impose tariffs, but what's that going to do to the markets where we have all of our money? So watch if there's a big sell-off in the market. If there's a big sell-off in the market, then I think that means the bad guys are trying to get their money out of the stock market before the ruling, which is probably going to collapse the stock market significantly. We'll see if that's the direction they go.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying about Nasara there, because there's many people, Nasara, what a load of bollocks. But
everything he proposes is right out of the playbook.
Just look at the patterns. It's so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Those 20 points on Nasara, he's just picking one off at a time.
One at a time.
I haven't called it Nasara for about 5. I call it Trump Sara anyway, because whatever he's doing is some part of it. And just a second to what you said there, with the Supreme Court and whatever decision they sort of make, military is the only way. And I think they're being positioned in a place.
Had I been Donald Trump, I would have brought the military in on January 21st, 2017, and just arrested all these people and showed everybody what they've been doing. That's what I would have done.
Well, you mean publicly, because we don't
publicly, absolutely. I was all in favor of shock and awe. Now, Jen Falah, my partner on my show, Real News Live with Mike and Jen, she says you couldn't do that because they tried that before in a different timeline and we ended up in a nuclear war. So, I mean, I don't know. Okay. She may be right, but I think we're definitely watching. We are watching this chess match go on, guys.
Yeah.
And the bad guys are running out of moves. They are running out of moves. So that's the key thing.
And funds.
Well,
and funds, which is what fuels the game. Yeah. That's what fuels the game.
Well,
brilliant. Well,
beautiful
thank you, Mike.
way to end. Thank you so much, Mike. We'll book another time, because I know our guests have loved hearing what you have to say today. And may the celebration continue throughout the week for your born day.
Well, the 28th is supposed to be a really good day for me financially. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Let's see if something interesting happens.
Keep our fingers crossed for you.
I'm definitely going to go put some money down on the Seahawks for the Super Bowl on the 28th.
Yeah, just quickly, didn't you say on one of your shows that, was it your partner Jen that said, or someone that said to you, if you ever want to make a bet, it's always on the 28th?
Yeah, no, actually it was, it's a Layla who is in my chat group. She does numerology, and I did a reading with her the other day. And she told me that because I'm an 8 life path number and all this stuff, she goes, the best days for you to pay bills are this, and that, and the 28th is one of them. And she said, and also that's the best day for you to go gambling. That's your best money day of every month is the 28th. So I'm like, yeah.
Oh, is that just you? Not everyone though.
Just everyone. Me, not everybody. Like you will have a different number. Based on your birthday and birth time, it'll be slightly different for you and different for you. But it's really invaluable to have, because now I'm going to go, okay, well, I'm going to pay my bills. Oh, I can't pay it. Got to wait 2 more days. I'll pay that bill then. That's why I'm going to do it. And we'll see what happens. She goes, because on these certain days, and I've got about 5 or 6 of them, if you pay the bills on that day, then the money comes back to you, is how she described it.
So it's the energy exchange.
Yeah, the energy exchange, right. And apparently last year was my toughest year of the next 12. So every year after this should get better and better and better, and I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, wow. Let me ask you a question, not to digress, but does she we would love to have someone on who can talk to numerology and all of that.
Or maybe the United States numerology. That would be interesting. Yeah, I'll talk to her. You want me to talk to her?
We'd love to have her on. That's a really fun and very pertinent.
Yeah,
that's how the universe communicates with us through numbers.
And you should have Jen on too, because she talks to angels.
Love to have Jen on.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll talk off camera about maybe just making an intro.
Okay.
Great. All right.
Well, let's hope after this, every year gets better for every one of us.
Everybody.
Apart from the criminals who are all going to get taken down.
Yes, let's hope they have a really bad year this year. Let's root for that.
I think they're going to. Yeah. Cheers, Mike.
All right, take care.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone, for watching in the chat, and we'll see you soon. Yeah. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is the difference between the power of our Creator and anything else, particularly evil. That you can go into a pitch black room full of evil, full of darkness, and light a little candle, and instantly that darkness flees. But you can't do the opposite. You can't go into a well-lit room full of truth and wisdom and righteousness and joy and health and harmony with the universal power. And you can't take any amount of darkness and go into that well-lit room and have any effect whatsoever. That is the metaphor which I frequently think of when I think that I'm not empowered. It is the greatest lesson for me, and I think for everybody else, to know that we're on the winning side and that we win in the end.